I just wanted to hop in here to let you know that today's episode is a little bit different. It's a little bit special compared to some episodes in the past. So if you're on a walk or a run, you may want to add a couple extra miles to this. Or if you're commuting in your car, maybe circle around your house or your office a couple of more times, because today you're getting 20 bags of popcorn. So I hope you enjoyed today's show. Hey, this is Chris. Hope you're doing well, and welcome to Popcorn Finance, the show where we discuss finance and about the time it takes to make a bag of popcorn. I'm excited today to be joined by one of my favorite podcasters, host of the Stagman Benjamin Show and the Money with Friends show, Saul-Sehy. How's it going?
I'm so happy I get to be here for this special episode, I think.
Oh, it's going to be fun. We're going to be doing something a little bit different. I think was it 2018 when we did our favorite movies?
We did. Yeah.
We talked about Movie Pass, RIP Movie Pass.
I know. That was such a good deal. Who knew it was too good to be true, huh? Shocker.
I know. Did anyone say that they were going to go out of business, just giving away movies? Who would have thought you'd run out of money?
Can't believe that would be a bad business model.
Well, I had so much fun with that conversation with you, Joe. I thought I'd bring you back to do something centered around movies. And I'm a big sports fan. I love basketball. And something they do every year is a draft. They bring in the new players fresh off of college or from Europe, and they go through and they pick who do they want. And I thought, why not do that with movies? We both have seen a ton of movies. I've seen, 22 movies. And how many have you seen, Joe?
This year, I saw 31.
31 movies. That's a lot. And we're just talking about movies in the theater, right?
Right. Yeah. And we're very lucky. Cheryl, my spouse, and I both have, she gets Tuesday afternoons off. And for people that go to movie theaters, Tuesday is always discount day. So two of us can see a movie in a really nice theater, usually with maybe two or three people over 70, 75 years old. And so it's an empty movie theater, and we see it for like $10 to $12 for both of us.
And before we get in this, I don't think they knew that they were going to be sponsoring a movie draft, but today's movie draft is brought to you all by Mint Mobile. And Joe, we're starting 2020 out, and what is something that everyone wants to do in the new year? What is one of those resolutions?
They want to watch more movies.
That is true.
They want to save money.
They want to save money. That's right. And one of the areas that you can cut back on your budget is with your cell phone plan. I think a lot of us have pretty huge cell phone plans that we're paying, and a lot of times we're asking ourselves, what are you paying for? That's where Mint Mobile comes in. You can cut your wireless bill down to just $15 a month. Every plan comes with unlimited nationwide talk and text, and you can choose between 3, 8, and 12 gigabytes of 4G LTE data. And I think that's great because you get to choose how much data you actually want to use and not pay for a bunch of stuff that you're not actually going to ever get to. So you can bring your existing phone and your phone number over to Mint Mobile, get your plan for just $15 a month, and have it shipped to your door for free by going to mintmobile.com/popcornfinance. And again, that's mintmobile.com/popcornfinance. I appreciate them supporting our movie habit and this draft today.
That's awesome.
Joe, let me give you and the audience the rules of this draft and how it's going to work. There are going to be 5 rounds total. We're going to alternate back and forth. Once a movie is selected, the other person can no longer select that movie. It's off the board, no longer an option. First, we're going to do our top 3 movies. So 1, 2, and 3 favorite movies of 2019. Fourth round, we're going to pick the worst movie that we saw in 2019. And then for the 5th and final round, it will be one of our favorite TV shows.
Cool. Okay.
All right. So, Joe, you have won this fake coin toss here, and you're going to go with the number 1 pick in this draft. Joe, what are you going with?
Number 1 pick for me, Chris, is going to be a movie as a Detroit guy that I really, really liked. I grew up around cars. My dad worked for General Motors. This is about a General Motors competitor, Ford, when Ford went up against Ferrari, Ford versus Ferrari, starring Matt Damon, Christian Bale. Fantastic movie. It doesn't make Detroit look really good. It actually makes Detroit look like kind of a bunch of bumbling idiots. But at the same time, the human aspects of this film are fantastic. Christian Bale, as always, brings it. Matt Damon, I think, spends a lot of time playing Matt Damon, the different Matt Damon in every show, but he's a guy you like. And so this story about how Carroll Shelby, famous for developing the Shelby Mustang, how Carroll Shelby and a ragtag group of people help Ford in a very short amount of time beat Ferrari. By the way, that's not a spoiler. That's history. That's what happened.
Exactly.
Yeah. So how they did it, and it's a great ride. The music is fantastic. There's a podcast that actually talks about the music of movies, and I'd encourage people to go listen to this podcast about how they made the score of the movie. The movie's called Score. And it's a fantastic podcast about scoring movies, but Ford versus Ferrari would be my first pick.
Oh, you know what? I didn't put that on my list, but I saw that. I forgot to list it on there. And that was a really good movie. I loved it. It was a great movie. I would probably put it's definitely in my top 10, maybe even like top 6 movies I saw in 2019. It was a good movie. I just completely forgot to list it. So thank you. You reminded me of stuff I saw that I completely forgot. I saw 23 movies, Joe. Let me update my total.
It's good news.
All right. With my number one pick, I'm going to select a movie that it really surprised me. I knew I was going to enjoy it because I really like the director. Director is Taika Waititi. And I was like, maybe this was supposed to be fun, but I didn't know I was going to enjoy the movie as much as I did. And that was Jojo Rabbit. And this was something that was like a crazy concept. Essentially, it's a young boy. He's maybe, I don't know how old he is, maybe like 8 or 9, somewhere around there. And he's essentially in Germany during World War II, and he's in basically the young Nazis group. Basically, it's like a bunch of kids like being trained in Nazi skills, and like instead of Boy Scouts, they're like little Nazis. And he has an imaginary friend who is Hitler, who is played by Taika Waititi. And that sounds like that's going to be the most disrespectful, rude.
It does.
Horrible movie you could think of, but it was handled so well. And essentially, I don't want to give too much away about the movie, but essentially, his mom is helping hide a Jewish girl in their house, like in a hidden room within one of the bedrooms. And he finds out about it, and he's disgusted. But then it's about him learning all the lies that are being spread about Jewish people and understanding what's going on. And just a great story. Scarlett Johansson plays his mom. I'm horrible with actors, so I won't be able to name anyone else who was in it, but amazing job, amazing movie, really touching, and it's my number one movie.
I had Jojo Rabbit as number 7 on my list, but I'll tell you, this year, Cheryl, my spouse, and I were talking about this as I was prepping for this appearance with you. This year, for the two of us, watching a lot of movies every year, the top 10 is tighter than ever. There were a lot of really good movies this year, and Jojo Rabbit could have been number 1 on my list. It was so good, and I really like the emotion that Jojo experiences when he discovers that his mom is hiding this young woman. Number 1, the fact that he loves his mom so much and he respects her so much totally just kills his worldview. And they do such a good job of, like, his whole world explodes. How would my mom do this horrible thing?
Exactly.
How would she do this? And at the same time, at young Nazi camp, run by the way, one of my favorite actors of all time, Sam Rockwell. I think
that's what it was.
Sam Rockwell's range is so big. That guy can play anything, and the role he plays in this movie as the director of the camp is done so bizarrely well again by him. That, Jojo is very disrespected by a lot of the other young Nazis. And the fact that he's completely disrespecting this young woman for a lot of things beyond her control, meaning she didn't choose to grow up Jewish. And by the way, and being Jewish is not absolutely the worst thing in the world. It's funny because when you talk about how bad this movie sounds when you hear about it, my wife is Jewish. And so when she heard the theme of this movie, she's like, I don't want to watch a movie with a kid who has Hitler as his imaginary best friend. I don't want to see it. And she went and she said, this is a wonderful movie. This is a fantastic film. So yeah, Jojo Rabbit's a great pick.
Yeah, completely. I think it is not what you're going to expect at all going into it. It's a great movie. So, all right, number 2, Joe, what's on your board?
I'm going to draft a movie called Peanut Butter Falcon.
Oh, yeah, I remember you telling me about this one.
So this movie is a modern day version of Huckleberry Finn, and these two lost souls going down the river together. It opens with a gentleman who has Down syndrome, played brilliantly by Zach Gottsagen. He is, for some reason that either I don't remember or it's largely irrelevant. He's become a ward of the state. And because of that, he is a young man who's in a nursing home because that's where the state can take care of him. And he's then with a lot of seniors, and they're all trying to help him bust loose of this place. So he's trying to break out and go on his own. He wants to get the hell out of here. And Bruce Dern is one of the people who plays one of these seniors trying to help him break out. So you see a couple jailbreaks at the beginning that sets the mood for the show. He finally gets out. No spoiler there because this is the first 10 minutes of the movie. And he meets up with, amazingly, a guy who I always have thought of as just kind of weird and has destroyed some concepts for movies that I loved. I love the movie Wall Street. Wall Street 2, starring Shia LaBeouf, or Shia? Just absolutely horrible. Shia LaBeouf, even as young, when he played young Indiana Jones, I thought he was horrible.
That was rough.
Yeah, but in this movie, he's a guy who has lots of problems of his own, and they go over his problems. So these two guys who have their own sets of problems set off on this adventure. And it is a fantastic adventure. It's a great story of two guys who have a lot to learn, learning from each other. Man, I went into this with no expectation. I'd heard about the movie one day before I saw it. And so I went in with zero expectation and walked out of that theater going, I think that's my favorite movie of the year. Barely beaten by Ford versus Ferrari on my end. But a movie, I think, if there's a movie everybody would like, I don't know who you are if you don't like this movie. Peanut Butter Falcon was fantastic.
Yeah, I remember, I think I sent you a message. I had just seen a movie, and then you're like, Peanut Butter Falcon, I just saw it. You got to go watch it. I missed it. I probably can rent it now, but I didn't catch it while I was in theaters. But it sounds like a great story. It sounds like something that would be really great to just sit down one afternoon and just take in and enjoy.
Oh, so good. Yeah, if you're watching, if it comes to whatever streaming service, a fantastic film.
Nice. All right. Time for my number 2 pick, Joe. This one, I think this was pretty easy. Number 1 for me was easy, and I feel like number 2 was pretty easy for me to select, and that is Motherless Brooklyn. This was a film that I don't think got a lot of publicity. I don't remember seeing very many commercials for this. I don't remember seeing like a lot of billboards. I don't think I even know anyone personally who watched this movie. But this was an amazing film starring Edward Norton. Bruce Willis is in it. And I won't say much more about that because I don't want to spoil it. I guess, I'm sensitive to spoilers, Joe, so I don't like giving away too much. I want people to really enjoy the film, but it's kind of central to it. So I'll spoiler alert. If you don't want to know anything about this movie, just stop right here and skip 2 minutes ahead. But essentially, Edward Norton, he has Tourette's, a form of Tourette's. So he can't control what he says sometimes. So he gets in these moods where it's really uncontrollable. If he gets too wound up or too nervous, he'll just, just say things out, blurt it out, and he'll have to do things like chew gum to control it and keep himself calm. But essentially, Bruce Willis rescued him. I think they were in an orphanage or like a home for young boys, and they didn't have parents. And he basically brought him into his crew. And Bruce Willis is like a PI. He's a private investigator, and he goes around and takes on different cases here and there. And so Edward Norton kind of finds his role because he's really good at remembering details. He can just hold on to all this information. So here's a spoiler. Just get ready. Bruce Willis, he's working a job, ends up getting shot and dies. And so it ends up, and that happens probably in the first 15 minutes of this movie. It's super early on. And so from then on, it turns into what happened to Bruce Willis? What was he investigating? Why was he killed? And Edward Norton is taking on this investigation and trying to uncover this big corruption ring that's going on that Bruce Willis was kind of getting into, and he was starting to understand things and find out details. It also stars, what's his name? He was in 30 Rock, Alec Baldwin. Great villain in this movie. Does an amazing job of being a horrible politician, and it's just an amazing story. The acting is just incredible. The way the story unfolds, you think you know where it's going, takes some twists and turns. That's all I say. I won't say any more about it. I'll let you enjoy it when you go see it. But that was my number 2 pick, Motherless Brooklyn.
I felt horrible that I didn't see this movie. Actually, it's funny. The day that we were going to go see it, we had a personal thing happen in our family, so we weren't able to see it, and then we just missed it. And I heard Edward Norton talk about it. I love hearing about how movies are made. I like the creative process, and the Tim Ferriss show Tim interviewed Ed Norton about the movie, and I'd say, listen to that, because I listened to that and it made me want to see it even more. So this is a movie that hopefully I'll get to go back and see on video because, I mean, I like the genre. I like the detective, how did it happen kind of genre in general. And then when you combine it with the quirkiness of this character with Tourette's, this really compelling character, it just totally sounds like my kind of movie.
Oh, yeah. That highly recommended. And probably no one else you know has seen it, so you can go tell them to go watch it after you all check this movie out.
Yeah, well, and that's what I like. I like the discovering of a movie, which, by the way, is my number 3. My number 3 is a movie that I can't understand why nobody saw this movie, why it didn't get a wider release, because the producer is Robert Redford. The movie, though, has no stars in it except Bruce Dern, again, who seems to come up in my favorite movies over and over for Nebraska. If you didn't see Nebraska, go see Nebraska. But this was a movie called The Mustang. And The Mustang is a fictional account of a true system that happens in the American West, which is there are all of these wild Mustangs on federal land, and every year they gather up a bunch of them and they take them to some of the prisons out west, and they have the inmates train these horses. And so you end up with, in this film, a man who's very angry for a variety of reasons. The movie starts with his daughter wanting him to sign papers where she is disassociating from him. She is no longer going to be considered his daughter, and he refuses to sign them. And what I like is the main character says very few words, but you can see all over his face the huge range of emotion. And as you find out his backstory as the movie goes on, that is coupled at the same time with him training this horse, who, of course, also has a very similar thing going on. And they kind of hit you over the head with the analogy a little bit that the horse is him, right? The horse is totally him. And so as the horse is getting trained at the same time that he's coming to grips with his own coping mechanisms, it's a fantastic ride. So The Mustang was my number 3.
I never heard of this movie. I did not see any advertising. I didn't even see a trailer for this.
Nowhere.
I didn't even know it existed.
Nowhere. Very frustrating too, because it's fantastic. With a name like Robert Redford behind it, you think that it would have gotten bigger play, but a great film.
I guess there's just too many movies coming out. Not all of them get the support they need.
I know. Well, we all had to go see Frozen 2. So.
Exactly. Well, hey, priorities, Joe. Priorities.
That's right.
All right. My number 3. This was the hardest decision for me because there were movies that I could have easily slotted into this. So I'm just going to my decision for number 3. It was really tight between Knives Out, Joker, and Avengers Endgame. Avengers is like, obviously this is not going to win any awards, but it was just the culmination of 10 years of movies, and they handled it so well that I was like, I enjoyed it. It was a 3-hour movie, Joe, and I saw it twice in the theaters, and I did not get bored at any point. I think I know your feelings on this movie. But, oh, man, that's why it was so tough for me to decide what would my number 3 be.
Please don't be Avengers Endgame.
Joe, I'm going to have to say it. I know you don't want me to, but I'm putting it in there. Joe, this is sitting in the theater, enjoying your popcorn, watching stuff blow up, seeing like 1,000 actors on the screen. And to me, it was just the culmination of, these are movies I started watching in 2009. Not all of them great. I'm going to just say it. I think it was 3 movies up to this point when this released. And they nailed it. They nailed the landing, Joe. I'm just saying.
What a horrible pick.
They just nailed the landing. I enjoyed it. The fact that I can watch a 3-hour movie twice, Joe.
It says a lot.
It says a lot. That was 6 hours of my life I gave away.
Which I completely agree. You gave it away. you could have done better, my friend. But what's a list without controversy, right?
Exactly. You, Joe, of course, you're not going to see this at the Oscars. You're not going to see too many people giving this any, critical acclaim. But it was enjoyable. They built a fantastic story that wrapped up 20 plus movies. And this has never been done before. There's never been a franchise with this many movies still with steam going.
I thought it was much better than the first half of this movie. What I didn't like about the first half that came out, 2 years ago? What I didn't like about the first half is once I knew that Thanos needed the 5 stones.
You knew he was
and
getting
Well, and he was just putting in number one. I'm like, okay, I've got 4 fight scenes I got to frickin' live through because I know that scene 2, fight scene 3, fight scene 4 don't matter. And you know he's going to get them because you've watched a Marvel movie before.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, if we could just fast forward to the 5th one so I can find out what happens, that would be great. So the good news about this film was it wasn't a complete waste of time of the whole middle you can just chuck in the trash. I actually had to follow it. And I'll tell you what I did like about it. I like the fact that they very masterfully were able to do a lot of threads with a lot of superheroes, give them their time on screen. Like, there's so many superheroes in this film, and giving them all enough story that it matters, exactly. I think is pretty difficult. And I did find myself moved in the storyline that involves Scarlett Johansson and Jeremy Renner. That storyline piece, which I won't spoil, I was emotionally involved in that part of the story. But when you've got Brie Larson coming out of the sky for her 2 seconds, you could have cut Captain Marvel from that movie and it wouldn't have mattered.
True. She did not need to be in that. But what you mentioned earlier is exactly why I enjoyed it so much. It's I think a feat of brilliant writing and of editing and directing to be able to handle that many characters, give them all their time, and you feel like everyone had their part to play. Nothing was, except for maybe Captain Marvel, was shoehorned in, and it made sense, and it kind of did a great job of wrapping up what they built up to this point. I didn't say too many details. I figure most people have some idea what these movies are about already. But this is one of those movies where it's like you might want to catch some of the 20 that happened before it for this to have any real impact for you when you watch it. Joe, I wanted to hop to round number 4. Maybe maybe my favorite round. What is the worst movie that you saw in 2019?
All right, I got to go first at this one too, huh?
Yes, I need to hear your answer.
Well, I was super excited as a guy who saw and loved Shakespeare in Love. Mm-hmm. I know that's a film that especially a lot of men are like, dude, you like Shakespeare in Love? Who are you? I really thought that was a great movie way, way, way back. And I also think that Kenneth Branagh is a fantastic actor. So when I heard Kenneth Branagh was going to play Shakespeare as he's retiring, I thought that would be really neat. So there's this movie that came out called All Is True, starring Kenneth Branagh and Judi Dench as his spouse. And Shakespeare's written his last thing, and now he's going to the farm where he hasn't been hardly ever. And he's actually going to cohabitate with his wife again, which she's not used to seeing him around. Much like somebody retires and all of a sudden, they're spending 24/7 together. I thought it was a pretty neat concept as a guy who's helped people do a lot of retirement planning. This movie was awful. It was horrible. Here is the key to this movie. This is what you have to know. It starts off slow and depressing, and it goes downhill from there. That's all you need to know. Just 2 hours where we're like, oh my God, please end. Please, please, please. I hope Shakespeare dies sometime soon. Just please die. I hope you die.
The way you're setting this up, I was like, this doesn't sound like a bad movie. Maybe you should have been part of the writing team. Maybe you could have saved this thing.
I had such high expectations. I'm like, this could be Kenneth Branagh. This is going to be fantastic. Nope. Judi Dench. Fantastic. Oh God, no.
Oh man. Okay. I will not. I wrote this down just so I don't accidentally watch this.
All is true.
All is true. Ooh, okay.
All is a lie.
Oh man. Okay. That was a great setup for that. All right. You put the pressure on me because I really want to present this movie as truly a horrible movie. Truly one of the worst movies around there. I want to give honorable mention though to Men in Black International and Gemini Man for also being two of the other worst movies that I saw in 2019.
When I saw Men in Black was going to have a new one, by the way, before you get to it, Chris, I was pretty damned excited.
Yeah.
And then I saw the reviews ahead of time, and I'm like, I can't even go see it.
No, it was the only reason Men in Black wasn't the worst one was because, it was kind of fun. There were some parts that I was like, this is kind of enjoyable. I kind of, zoned out a little bit and enjoyed some of the action. But overall, it just didn't make any sense. And
then, by the way, on the opposite side, a movie you would expect to be horrible. And I thought this with the first remake of it, and I expected it again with the second. It wasn't. And I went and saw it. And by the way, I forgot to put this on my list. I actually saw 32 movies, but you just remind me of it. Jumanji.
Oh, I enjoyed that.
Jumanji was fun as all get out.
Yeah.
Again. again, both of these, the first reboot and this second reboot, both a great time. But you would think, hey, Jumanji, Men in Black, right? Same era, original film. Like, hey, this is going to be cool.
Yeah, it's like they can do this. I mean, if they can do it with one, they can do it with the other. They could not. Men in Black has run its course and it needs to be retired. But the worst movie I saw in 2019, Joe, this is part of a major franchise. Maybe this beats the Avengers. I have no idea. I've not counted how many movies have been in this franchise. But it is an international brand known. This character is known by people across the world. Japan has a fond place in their heart for this guy here. The worst movie I saw in 2019 was Godzilla. I think it was Godzilla King of the Monsters, I think is the official title of this movie. I don't think you need to know because I don't want you to go watch it. So we'll just leave it at just Godzilla, one of those versions. Yeah, King of the Monsters. This movie just made no sense. The story was so contrived. You're constantly asking yourself, why did they make this decision? Or you know what's bad when you're sitting there saying they could have just done so many other things to avoid this situation. Essentially, if I can remember the story, Godzilla, I think in the last movie had defeated some other monster that I've completely forgotten about. And the scientists are going around basically locating these other monsters that exist that are like locked away in the earth or frozen in some ice. And essentially there's a group that wants to kind of like release these monsters, and that's what happens. They release these other monsters. Some are good. The majority of them are following this evil 3-headed dragon, and they need to bring Godzilla to come help save them. And it just isn't good. It isn't good.
Lots of big names in the movie. I'm looking at the cast right now on IMDb. Sally Hawkins, who was in Shape of Water. Kyle Chandler, who, of course, most known probably, he's known in a lot of things, but Friday Night Lights. Vera Farmiga,
Millie Bobby Brown from Stranger Things.
Brown. Yeah, Bradley Whitford from The West Wing.
They have the actors. It kind of reminds me of the one that came out before this one. I believe Bryan Cranston was in that one, and I was
2014.
Yes, I think that's when it was, and I was so excited. I love him. He's a great actor. Love Breaking Bad. Pretty much love anything he does. And he's in the movie for like 15 minutes, and I'm like,
yes.
It's like you took the best actor out of the whole movie.
The frustrating thing about that movie was I went in thinking Bryan Cranston because they advertised the hell that he was in that movie over and over and over. And I went and saw it, and you're right, he's barely in the movie at all. I thought, though, the 2014 one was really good. I can understand the divisiveness of the 2014 one because it's set up, and the director talks about this actually, because I went and saw this afterwards. I'm like, okay, I liked it, but I liked Ad Astra, and a lot of people didn't like Ad Astra because it was so slow with Brad Pitt.
I never got around to that one.
But it really is about the thoughts in his head. So if you're watching Ad Astra because of the fact you're looking for a science fiction movie, don't go see it. Please don't. But if you're looking for man's search for meaning in a big universe, then it's a wonderful, thoughtful movie. But so Godzilla was set up the way the old Japanese ones were set up, where it is really slow and it's slow developing, and there's actually a lot of existential stuff going on, and you need to look at it through a bigger lens. But I noticed that movie got pretty good Rotten Tomatoes, and this one didn't. So.
Yeah, please don't waste your time, Joe. Just don't do it. It's not worth it. You're just going to be angry when you leave the theater.
So one Godzilla movie a decade might be good for all of us.
That's enough. That's more than enough.
Hey, you talked about and I know this is becoming a long episode, but can I talk about a couple of movies that were surprising to me on the positive and negative side? Since this is probably my only opportunity to talk about my favorite movies this year. Brittany Runs a Marathon was number 14 on my list. I expected nothing of that movie. That was, whatever happened to the rom-com, right? The romantic comedy genre is just dead. There's hardly any. I'm thinking Crazy Rich Asians won a few awards last year, but besides that, you don't see these. And Brittany Runs a Marathon was a movie. You talk about popcorn movie, just not a lot going on there, just really fun. That was a good one. Surprisingly bad. I love the story. This came in at number 20, just above Avengers Endgame for me. Was a movie I had huge expectations for. I love the story of Harriet Tubman, and I think it's a story that's needed to be told for a long time. This was such a freaking paint by numbers, beat me over the head with the meaning version of it. I think the Harriet Tubman story could have been told so much better. But when she's on a white horse with the sun gleaming behind her and the evil slave owners down on the ground, okay, I get your meaning. I didn't need any of that. You know,
yes. That's what I was afraid of. I didn't go see it for that reason. I was like, it just had that feeling of this is going to be, it's not going to be what you want it to be. It's not going to be as impactful and meaningful as you think it's going to be.
No, I love the story and it needed to be told, but oh God, you could have done such a better job. So I liked it better than Avengers Endgame, but that was another one. And the one that I just saw that didn't make my top list, but I can see how it was up for best movie of the year was, won the Golden Globe was 1917. 1917, just if you were somebody that liked Band of Brothers, and liked is a tough word, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That you appreciate that one. That is one. If Harriet had been told the way they told 1917, which I think they could have easily done, Harriet could have been up for movie of the year. So
yeah, I've heard great things about that movie. I had it on my list. I just never got around to watching it. Maybe I'll add that in this month before it leaves theaters.
Yeah, 2 hours of just sitting on the edge of my seat. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not typically a war movie fan, but that is kind of intriguing me to go check that one out.
Yeah.
You got me kind of. I want to throw a couple of my honorable mentions out there.
Yeah, bring it.
All right. Speaking of big franchises, Terminator Salvation. I think that's what it's called. I think that's the name of it.
Yeah.
I was done with Terminator movies. I was like, they haven't made a good Terminator movie in a very long time. Watch this. It was really enjoyable. This is if you just want a straight up action movie with a story that makes sense. They somehow managed to bring Arnold Schwarzenegger back again. It's a great movie. If you just want a pure summer action movie that still is fun and still makes some type of sense, at least as much as you can make this type of movie make sense, it was enjoyable. This might be my favorite Terminator movie. I mean,
that's cool.
Up there, made with I guess the second Terminator film. This is right up there with it. So really enjoyable. And then Alita: Battle Angel. I was in my action movie trend. This was an anime or a manga that they turned into a mixture of CG and live action movie, and it was done so well. I mean, visually, it's impressive. It's like you believe everything you're seeing is done so well, and it's a unique story. Very cool mixture of. It's in the future. There's people are doing this body modification where they're mixing real people with robotic android type parts. Overall, a really cool film. Something that if you want to see something that's going to just impress you visually, I would definitely check that one out.
That's a movie that I saw the previews for and I just lost track of. And even going back through the list of films like for the year so I could remind myself of all the movies that I saw as I was making my top list, I missed it then. And then I saw it was in your list and I clicked on it and I went, oh my God, I loved all the previews for it. Yeah. And not the action pieces, but the emotion around who am I, right?
Exactly.
Which I think is probably a big part of this film. I really want to see that. I'm going to catch that one. God, there's so many great movies that I'm just looking at my list that we didn't mention. Knives Out. I mean, we talked just barely, but Knives Out was so good. Movie. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood.
I never caught that one, but I think that's still in theaters. I might still try to catch that one if I can.
Yeah, Rocket Man was pretty good. If you watch Downton Abbey on TV, and I know we're getting to that topic next, but the Downton Abbey, the movie to end it. I know people that didn't watch Downton Abbey that love that film, just liked it.
Great acting.
Movie. Yes. Yes.
All right. And Joe, you kind of teased it there. What we wanted to leave it off on for the final round is, we'll just call this just a TV show that you either enjoyed the most, you love, was the most fun during 2019. And this will be our fifth and final pick. So Joe, what TV show kind of hit you that you were like, this is something I loved and I would love for other people to know about this one?
Boy, I had a really hard time with this because I really loved, I came late to the game to Schitt's Creek. I know they just did the final season, so came late to that. I'm in the middle of Jack Ryan and The Crown, and I really like those. But I thought for this, I should point to one that most people probably haven't seen, and it's a science fiction show. I was really looking for a good sci-fi show. Haven't had one like Battlestar since Battlestar Galactica. And Battlestar Galactica was so uneven. It would be great one episode, horrible the next, and seasons were good and bad over time. This one has been great and just keeps getting better. It's called The Expanse.
Yes. I was hoping you were going to say that, Joe. I love that show. That was right up there for me.
So many people need to see this show. It's just so good. It's this little crew. You've never seen any of these actors before. Maybe in bit parts you've seen them before. Fantastic acting. A plot that I can't wait for the next show. So The Expanse is mine. Oh,
man. That is probably the best sci-fi I think I've seen, between the story and just visually. And you're right. It's just every episode you want to just get in there. And the only reason that's not my pick, well, I can't pick it now, but the only reason that wasn't going to be my pick was I haven't finished the 4th season, which just came out this year.
Oh,
on Amazon.
I'm behind you. I'm on season 2.
Oh, okay. Well, yes. Oh, you got a lot to look forward to then.
Yeah. It's fantastic. Every episode's fantastic. I love it.
Amazing. Great pick. All right. So my pick, there's a lot of shows that I really enjoyed. I just finished watching Watchmen. Oh, great story. The Good Place is always something that I enjoy. You don't think it's going to be good, but it still finds a way to be enjoyable. With Tony Danza,
with Kristen Bell.
Wait, I always mix up his name. Is it Tony Danza?
No, it's Tony
Danza.
Ted Danson.
I always mix up Tony Danza and Ted Danson, and
they're nothing alike.
They look nothing
except
alike.
Their names. Yeah,
I mean, there's so many shows. Like you said, The Expanse, Star Trek Discovery was great this year. But what I'm going to go with is a new show to Amazon. It's called The Boys, and this one caught me by surprise. I did not expect this show at all.
Everybody's telling me to watch this show.
Joe, you have to watch it. So since you hated Avengers, you're going to love this. Essentially, the premise of the show is, imagine superheroes are actually real and they've been commercialized. Essentially, they become these products, like these big companies who manage them and have their team of superheroes, and they actually like hire them out to cities and say, hey, your city needs a superhero, and they'll charge cities for them to send a superhero to go live in there and fight crime in their city. They make these movies. Essentially, they're making like Marvel movies about these people that are fake. They set up all these staged events so that they can be filmed just to build up their clout. And there's a guy, his girlfriend dies in collateral damage by one of these superheroes. And that's like a big issue. It's like they're causing all this damage. People are dying, but they just kind of cover it up. And they're just like, well, whatever, this is just part of the business. And he gets recruited into this with this guy, and they're like uncovering all this corruption that exists, because these superheroes, these quote unquote superheroes, are horrible people. They're like power hungry. And so they feel like they can just do whatever they want because they're like gods. And they just do the most horrible things under the scenes that you don't know about. And it was so fun. It was an amazing series. It surprised me so much.
I've heard this is a show definitely not to watch with kids.
Oh no, do not let your kids watch this at all. There's nothing for children in this show. Don't do it. Even though the superheroes, do not let them watch this movie or this show.
There's so much good TV out. I've was just reading that there are over 500 scripted shows out right now.
Oh, that's a lot. That is a lot. Maybe one day we'll just break out and do like a TV draft. Well, that'll be the next iteration of this here.
Maybe this is just our new podcast. Maybe we need a new TV and movie podcast. I mean, I know there's a lot of good ones already, but maybe this is our journey into that. I
like it, Joe. I like the way you're thinking. Hey, well, thank you so much. I'm just do a quick recap here. Joe, we're going to go over your picks here. Pick number 1 was Ford versus Ferrari. Number 2 was Peanut Butter Falcon. Number 3 was The Mustang. Your worst film is All Is True. Sounds amazing. And your TV show pick is The Expanse. And then for me, number 1 was Jojo Rabbit. Number 2, Motherless Brooklyn. Number 3 is Avengers Endgame, Joe's personal favorite. Worst film of the year was Godzilla King of the Monsters, and my TV pick was The Boys. So here's some suggestions for y'all. I'll throw this up on the site. I'll put it in the show notes so you can check it out, see what we picked, and maybe I'll even get together the full list. If you want to see that, I'll throw that up there as well. They can see all the 50 plus movies that we saw combined. Joe, before we get out of here, you make a lot of great shows, a ton of great podcasts. What's going on with you? What's something you have going on in the new year with your shows? And where can people go out to maybe say hi and check out what you're doing?
Well, thanks for having me, man. And on one of our shows, Money with Friends, you're on our cast. Our season is finishing, this wonderful season we have. We're going to introduce a new cast, but it's my friend Bobby Rebell and I with thought leaders talking about headlines and stuff. You know, you read a lot of these financial headlines, you're like, what does that have to do with me? So we invite people like Chris Browning on who help us figure that out. We've had some great people. Josh Dorkin has been on our team. Josh, the creator of Bigger Pockets. Diane Harris, who is an executive editor at Newsweek. Lynette Kofani-Cox, who was with CNBC and Dow Jones and is the money coach. Just lots of great people. But what I'm going to do, this is what I really want to talk about, Chris, is my newsletter is called The Stacker, where people get lessons about their money from us over 52 weeks. But I'm going to publish my list because I had to put it together for this show anyway. So to sign up for The Stacker, it's stackingbenjamins.com/stacker. And each week in your mailbox, you'll get some stuff. You'll also find out what's going on with Stacking Benjamins as we come out with new fun stuff. But my list is going for 2019's movies is going to be a part of that. So if you want to argue with me about my list, like I argue with Chris, sign up for The Stacker.
Oh, that's perfect. I'll make sure I put that in the show notes so that way people can get over there and check it out and see your list and your horrible decision to put Endgame so very low. So very low.
Right. Travesty.
Hey, well, Joe, thank you so much. I really appreciate the time, and you let me pull you into this draft and talk about all these movies we saw. Looking forward to check out some new things and talking with you and seeing what you're picking, because you got some great choices on your list.
Anytime, my friend, and likewise. So fun talking movies with you, dude.
Yeah, boy, keep it poppin' like Mary Poppins.